This episode of the HooperCast is brought to you by Letterboxd. Right now, listeners of our show have the chance to win a free 1-year pro account upgrade on Letterboxd. For those of you who don't know, Letterboxd is a social network for film lovers that allows you to track, rate, and review the films you watch. You can follow other members to get recommendations. You can publish lists of films like your top 10 for the year and a lot more. Letterboxd is free to use. There's no subscription fee, but a pro account is going to provide you with additional features such as a customized summary of your past year's viewing. If you already have an account, then you get a 1-year extension free. If you want to enter, all you have to do is listen to our show and we will read the code word at random. Then you're going to send us an email at hoopercast@gmail.com, enter the code word in the subject line of the email, and make sure you include your Letterboxd username. The winner will be selected during the last show of each month. You can also follow our show on Letterboxd. Just search HooperCast. That's letterboxd.com, letterboxd.com, letterboxd.com. Boom. We're going to get right into the show. We're live. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the HooperCast. It is I, Connor. It is he, Dustin.
Hey, everybody.
And we do not know how to share live videos on Twitter from Facebook.
We're woefully unprepared for all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. That's okay. We'll manage.
Yeah.
If you didn't catch this live stream, I can't imagine why you wouldn't, because, we know what we're doing and everything.
Right.
There's a bunch of other ways you can watch the show or listen to it, of course. If you catch the audio version, here's a bunch of places you can get the full episode of this podcast: iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, CastBox, Breaker, Google Podcasts, and Anchor FM. Just search HooperCast. If you see, I have the hotkey for that, but I don't have there we go. Here's some other social media links to where you can find us. That's cool too. That will be very, very beneficial to contact us on those and to just like the page in general.
Yeah, totally.
Just to be nice, if you're into that sort of thing.
Right.
Tonight, Dustin, we're going to talk about a few movies. We're going to get right on into it. Do you know what I didn't do?
What did you not do?
Doesn't matter. Who cares?
Okay.
Who cares?
Yeah, we won't let on how unprepared.
All right. Anyway, I'm going to let a couple more people join in here before we get started.
I gotcha.
Even though I just sort of indicated we were going to get started. Wow. We are just, I'm dropping the ball tonight.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
What's crazy is that the delay on the live is such that I punch up my image and then what I see is myself preparing frantically to punch it up. So you can see how I'm going like, this is so good. How worried I look before I typically, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So who cares? That's fine. We're all fine.
That's fine.
Oh, you know what my daughter said tonight?
What's that?
Interesting little tidbit. I was drying her hair after her bath, and she said, "Daddy, I have hair like Dustin."
It's not untrue.
Yeah, that's a compliment, Dustin.
Well, thank you, Amelia.
Yes. So one day she'll undoubtedly subscribe to this YouTube channel, because who wouldn't want to?
Right.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. Yes, I did get a haircut. Dustin, you can't see it.
I can't see it.
No.
I'm gonna pull up the live stream on my phone.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Hold up.
You might crash the podcast if you try to use up too much computing power.
I know, right?
Yeah. Well, anyways, let's sort of get started here.
Yeah, let's do
just
it.
to get the ball rolling.
Sure.
Yeah. So we're here tonight to talk about a few movies. This happens to be, I'm not going to say inadvertently, because we did sort of plan it, but
it started to be inadvertent, and then we just kind of rolled with it.
Right. Exactly. This ended up being a horror themed episode of the HooperCast.
Right.
I wouldn't say horror, but
thriller.
Yeah.
Creepy,
no
supernatural. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So we're going to talk about a few of those films right now. The chief of which our star tonight
Yes.
is A Quiet Place.
Yes.
This is a really, oh, hello, John. This is a really, I see you, Wendell. I see you, Wendell. That stream is so distracting. It's just like something pops up and I got shut up. All right. A Quiet Place.
Yeah.
As you can see by this picture, maybe there's a lot of people in the frame. Directed by John Krasinski, who also stars in the film.
Sweet.
Also starring Emily Blunt, his real life wife, and a couple of kids who are not his real life kids.
Right.
It is a film about a family, and it is, I think, it's one of those a few years from now in the future type films. I think it's probably just a year in the future. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's close to now.
Yeah.
And
Near
and
future.
there is an alien race who has come to Earth and started attacking people.
Mm-hmm.
And it is established very quickly in the movie that the way that they are blind and the way that they catch and eat people is by sound.
Right.
So everyone surviving on Earth has learned that silence is the key to survival.
Right.
So you want to just give our star ratings right off the bat for this movie?
Yeah, I want
Just
you to
so we
start
can-
because I'm curious.
Oh, okay. Well, I gave this film, Dustin, could put me on a spot like that. I gave this film 5 stars.
Oh, okay, cool.
5.
Awesome.
If you've listened to our show before, you know how rare that is.
Yeah, that's very rare.
That we give something a 5 out of 5 stars. It's our highest rating.
Yep.
So why do I give this a 5 out of stars? Because it is visual storytelling,
Yes.
which I always give a film points for. If you can tell me the story using less words,
Right.
that means you know how to direct a film.
Yep.
And John Krasinski, believe this is his first film. He knocked it out of the park.
It's like in film school, they always tell you like your film should be so well shot that you can watch it on mute and still understand what's happening.
Yeah.
This film does do that.
Yeah. This is tight screenwriting. That's
Yeah.
another thing that, if you can do that, it's just another display of artistry
Right.
that translates to a movie people want to see.
Yeah.
And it's good performances. The cast is all really good, especially the kids, but
Yeah.
Krasinski, especially Emily Blunt. Oh my gosh.
Right.
What a great actress she
She's
is.
great anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I like about it too is its minimalist effects.
Yeah.
It is, there's obviously some CG involved to create the monsters, but I mean, like the majority of this movie is they're not even, on camera.
Right.
They're
Exactly.
used sparingly as they should be.
Right.
So it is not only do I think it's a great example of all the right things that you can do in filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
What I like about it on a personal level, because for me to get to a 5, there always has to be something personal that pulls me into it. I
Right.
think the last film I gave a 5 was Infinity War, and probably before that was Logan. I don't give 5 stars very much.
Right. Yeah.
So what's in it for me personally?
Mhm.
This is a pretty obvious allegory for fatherhood.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would agree with that.
Yep.
This is a movie where, it's pretty clearly about a dad trying to take care of his wife and his kids.
Yep.
And a mother trying to watch over her kids and help her husband, survive. And so,
Yep.
now you may be thinking, if you listened to the mother review, you might be thinking, oh, really, Connor, an allegory.
Mhm.
Interesting. Didn't think you like allegories very much. I thought you said allegories were stupid.
This is true.
I did not say allegories were stupid. I said allegories are stupid if you don't write characters.
Yes.
Okay? I don't know why that thing's freaking out, but my notes have started to pinwheel. That's cool. I love it when it
Sweet.
does that. It's not like I
Right.
need to click on it or scroll past it or read notes.
Nah.
Like I got a photographic freaking memory. It's pretty obviously about fatherhood.
Yeah.
So I don't hate allegories when they include actual characters. Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Everyone is great in this. The world makes sense. Their
Yep.
choices make sense.
Yep.
And here's another thing in it for me on a personal level. It's it makes sense for them to keep their baby.
Mhm.
They, as you see in this picture, it's gone. As you saw in that picture back there, Emily Blunt is pregnant with but drum roll, a baby.
A baby.
And so a lot of people, you know, at least a lot of, you know, if you're like a Christian, for instance, or you're pro-life and you're watching this movie, then you're going to really give it points for that, because there's probably not a lot of films out there you'd consider to be pro-life in that sense.
Sure.
It's not even, you know, you can choose to take it, you know, on that, you know, at face value like that. It's just one thing you could read into the film. Although I think if you're reading into that subject, it's clearly pro-life, because if you can find an excuse to not go through the pregnancy, this would be it. Babies are loud. Right. They don't understand, you know, things, and they certainly don't understand that they have to be quiet, not just we want you to be quiet.
Right.
So it's a pro-life film, it's a pro-family film, it's a pro-fatherhood film. The dad, John Krasinski, isn't you know, reduced to this bumbling sort of stupid guy in this film. And so I'll just sort of cap it off, at least with my personal thoughts, by saying I love this film, and it might in fact be the first non-Marvel film in years that I end up buying.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, like if I give it a 5-star, that's like I would buy this film. I'd watch it over and over, because this film means something to me.
Yeah,
you know, it does. I mean, like, again, like I don't want to put like a. That's right, Stefan. Babies are loud, very loud. I'm such an expert. Stefan's got 3 kids. He knows.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you know.
And one of them, in fact, being a baby, and the other 2 having, in fact, been babies in the past.
Yes.
Including,
as most children are.
Including himself and his wife.
Yes.
Everyone, really. We all used to be babies.
Right.
We all used to be loud. But again, like what's good about this film for me is that it's not only just an obvious, like, oh, this is, you know, you could make this very clearly a satire. Like, you could take this same premise and the same thing you want to get out of it, which is like, being a parent's hard because children are needy, and, you know, but you have to guide them and get them from A to B, but you have to do it like in a way that's not just, you know, traffic copying them.
Right.
That's in essence what parenthood is about. But this film presents a scenario of like, you don't understand, if you make too much noise and if you don't listen to me, you're going to die.
Right. There are consequences to disobedience. Yeah.
And not just you're going to be punished. It is we're going to be killed. And they set that up. They show you in the first couple of scenes of this film what these creatures can do and the consequences of not understanding the dangers of this world. Yeah. So yeah, I'm sorry, I've been going on and on about this film. But in essence, I give it 5 stars, and just for all the technical reasons, for all the story and emotional reasons. Yeah. It's really good. It's a really good movie.
No, I agree with you. I think I'm going to give it 4 stars. No, it's a really, really solid movie. I think you're right. I love John Krasinski in this film. The character that he plays is sort of overly burdened for, you know, providing for his family. Yeah. And Emily Blunt is maybe overly burdened in mothering her family. Yeah. And so it really speaks maybe in a better, deeper, clearer way than any other movie I've seen about the burden that a family can be. And that's not to say that it's not worth it, but that's to say that there, you know, that responsibility that you take on as a parent is heavy, and it's a heavy load sometimes. Sometimes, you know, it's not always life or death, but it's almost always heavy. And so I think this film, you know, perfectly showcases that John Krasinski's sort of in this headspace of provision, just constantly provision. For his daughter, I'm going to like study and learn how to make these cochlear implants, and I'm going to give them to you, these hearing aids that will help you. And then, you know, for his son, I'm going to teach you how to fish. I'm going to teach you these things. And you know, so I think that I think this does a better job of explaining that than any other movie I've seen. I love that the characters all have their own characters, and this is all done with very minimal dialogue. That John Krasinski's overburdened, and you know that there's true love there with his wife. That scene that she comes downstairs and just puts an earbud in his ear and just dances with him in the quiet. That's her saying, without ever saying, take a break. Like, you need to be just a person again. And so all of these things they're hidden in the subtext. The daughter is brave, but maybe blinded or paralyzed by her own insecurities, and the son is very frightened of everything. And so all of these characters have specific character traits and specific arcs that they're going to be dealing with throughout the course of the film. There's a couple little things I could nag about. I'm not crazy about the design of the aliens, what little we see of them. They're a little generic. I didn't know what really I would do differently. It just feels like a lot of the other CG aliens I've seen lately. And then maybe the as well thought out as this world is and this scenario, it's a little confusing, especially up front, what the level of these aliens hearing is, because we see their daughter like snapping her fingers in her ear, and it's like, so that level of noise is okay. But we don't want like footsteps, you know what I mean? It's like this tiny little thing where I just wasn't 100% clear on like, what are the limitations? If we're above this threshold, the aliens hear us. If we're below this threshold, they don't. And it just felt like maybe there wasn't a constant there. So I gotta maybe dock it a little bit, but just because I was unclear, where, like, how far the aliens could hear and what level they could hear and all this kind of stuff and how all of that worked. But I don't know how you really would explain that unless, inexplicably one of them, him or her, is an expert, or, they meet a scientist character or whatever. So I appreciate the fact that they didn't give us an exposition scene. But I also wanted to know a little bit more of the rules associated with this thing. Because again, there's just a few little things where I felt like, okay, should the aliens be able to hear that or not? And it's just a little confusing on that end. Now, we're going to talk about a movie in a minute that I was also confused about, but I think this is sort of a little bit of a common theme with movies like this, where they're high concept, so you have to explain a lot, but you don't really want to bog us down in exposition. But you do have to make sure that the rules are clear. So it's a double-edged sword. It's like, you want to be clear, but not overly explanatory. So, having said that, I do like that the film takes the route of not explaining it. If it was between overly explaining it and not explaining it, I'd rather you not explain it. It's just I was a little more confused, I think, than I would have liked. So anyway, all in all, though,
life is confusing, Dustin.
It's true, and those are just two tiny little nitpicks. That really didn't hinder the way that I viewed the film or the enjoyment I got out of it. It's just sort of on further like reflection. It's like, oh yeah, I would have liked if blank. I would have liked if blank. But while I'm watching it, I'm in it, and I think that's such a good a good. Anybody who listens to this podcast knows that I'm not a huge fan of horror movies. I think a lot of them are formulaic, and I think a lot of them are kind of dumb. But this really sold me from the beginning. And to speak to your point, it's because of the characters. This isn't a spoiler, but right up front, we see, this scene in a supermarket with the characters all being quiet and all trying to get things necessary for survival. And from that scene, that very first scene, I'm hooked. So I really enjoyed the crap out of this movie. I think that, again, a couple little things that maybe I would revise if I could, but it's nothing that's going to take you out of the film. I think that this is 100% worth seeing. It seems like a lot of people saw it in theaters, but if you haven't, it is at Redbox. It's at your local library. Just go get it. Do yourself a favor. And even if you don't like horror movies, this is one of those movies that defies the genre. It's almost more of a sci-fi movie anyway. But regardless, I think you'll like this because it's just a good movie with good characters and a good story. So yeah, I do highly recommend A Quiet Place. Yeah, man, I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I definitely. It's a great film. I can't think of who wouldn't enjoy this film. And it's for people who might be wondering, like, it's not a scary film.
No,
it really isn't. There's nothing, I mean, other than the prospect of, people being in mortal peril, children being in mortal peril.
There's tension.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not scary.
Right.
And it's not overly reliant on like jump scares or, like weird, like audio stingers that are going to like, pierce your eardrums.
Right.
So yeah, no, I think it's just a well-made movie.
Yeah.
They're talking about doing a sequel. Whatever, but yeah, I do think, I guess if we have to make a horror movie sequel, fine.
I'm not into that.
I think John Krasinski said he would be involved, and so hopefully he can give us something decent. So yeah, no. Can I say just really quickly?
I hope that producer goes to A Quiet Place, whoever they are.
I know, right? Just solitary confinement. Just get out of here.
Mop closet.
Yes. Can I just say too how much I enjoyed the direction here and how I really did not expect that from John Krasinski. I think he directed a couple episodes of The Office, if I'm not mistaken.
Explain what you mean by that, because maybe some people, maybe our newer viewers, maybe the novices, people out there may not understand what entails directing and what makes good directing, at least in this case.
A couple of things, and I hinted at one of them earlier, which is you want to make sure that your story makes sense visually. That everything that happens in this movie should be visually coherent. So in other words, you're not like jumping around a scene so that our minds are confused. One of the basic rules, and this is just sort of the easiest to explain, is the 180-degree rule. You have two characters sitting across from each other, draw an imaginary line between them. If in your master, which is to say your first shot, your widest shot, if in your master you shoot it with character A on this side of the frame and character B on this side of the frame, you're going to want to make sure that even in your close-ups that stays true, because if you flip-flop it, the audience will get discombobulated. And so there's a lot that goes into filmmaking that a lot of people don't think about, and all of it, because all a movie is a string of images pieced together, and your brain does the rest to assume the moments in between and assume what's happening. If there's a close up of my eyes, and then you see in the very next shot, a field and a small character in the distance coming, I'm looking at that. There's nothing to tell you that, but our brains do the job of telling you that. All that is to say that visual storytelling is super important because your audience makes everything up. And so when you direct a movie, not only do you direct what the movie is, but you're also in a way directing the way the audience perceives it. And in a horror movie, that may be even more true than ever, because you have to build tension without showing the thing you're building towards.
Bingo.
So when you build tension, and especially, think about this, or think about Jaws, or think about anything where, the monster is used sparingly, Alien. You are building in the imaginations of your audience a thing that is not seen on screen.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a director, you have to be very conscious of what will my audience be thinking at this moment. If I frame the shot in this way, does that tell the audience this is a POV shot? Does it tell the audience we're looking, like if we're bird's eye, what does that mean? All of these things, if the camera's moving, will that feel jarring? All of these things that you might not think about. And then on top of that, so we've already talked about, a little bit of composition. We've already talked a little bit about motion, but let's also talk about color. Let's also talk about, the actual cinematography of it. You have to make sure that everything lines up. And then at the very maybe tip top, especially in a movie like this, the performances have to be stellar, and the director has to get the performers, and in this case, he himself is one of them, to the proper headspace to be able to deliver an emotion without a word. Because in this case, there's very little dialogue. So you have to deliver everything without dialogue. So think about that scene I just mentioned where Emily Blunt comes to John Krasinski and they dance. There's no dialogue there.
Yeah. And
yet I know exactly what's happening. That's because of good performances, and that's because of great direction. And so for an actor, it goes one of two ways. Sometimes someone who starts as an actor either ends up being a really good director or they don't. It's one of the two. I mean, you can look at Leonard Nimoy, who ended up being a good a good director, and William Shatner, who ended up being a terrible director. There's no rhyme or reason. It's just how well you understand the visual.
Debatable abilities as an actor as well.
Well, this is true, but you have to understand the visual components involved, and for an actor like John Krasinski, who cut his teeth on a show with a very specific style, to then come over here where that style, probably everything you learn there, you have to completely throw out. Because on The Office, you learn about camera movements, and you learn about like looking at the camera, and you learn about improvisation. And here you have to toss all of it. And stick to the script. You have to be intentional about every little thing. And so, yeah, it's not to say I didn't think John Krasinski could direct, but it was a question mark. How is this going to play? And he does phenomenally. And I'll be honest, I'm a huge fan of The Office. I've probably watched through that show more times than I can count. And
Office is great.
Yeah. And yet I never thought of Jim Halpert.
Yeah, that is the key. I mean, for him coming up to being like Jack Ryan as well for this new Amazon series too. I mean, this certainly at least helps shake Jim Halpert out of my mind.
Exactly.
For him, I mean, do you remember? Do you remember? Wasn't he on the short list to be Captain America way back in the day?
He was.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm sure I prefer Chris Evans for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, but
you know what I've heard, and I think this would be really cool. It wasn't even a rumor. I think it was just like fans saying this is what should happen, is that he should play Reed Richards and Emily Blunt should play Sue Storm.
Of the Fantastic Four.
Fantastic Four, and I was like, yo, I am on board with that for sure.
Yeah, that'd be good.
That'd be amazing. They've got great chemistry.
Oh, well, of course. Now that Chris Pratt and Anna Faris are divorced, wouldn't I mean, do you think that these two are like, just from like a pure gossip standpoint, do you think that these two are probably one of those couples that are like Hollywood darlings, I guess, would you say? Chris Pratt and Anna Faris seemed like one of those couples to a lot of people who seem really relatable and relatively normal. I think right now you've got these two, and you've got like Dax Shepard and Kristen Bell, and that's
right.
That's anyway. Yeah. Let's move on from A Quiet Place. I think we couldn't give it higher marks. At least I couldn't. Dustin found a way to give it 4 stars.
Gosh, I hate everything.
Dustin, when you see a film, when you finally one day see the film that you give 5 stars, that you just go, my God, I wept, and
I wept and wept.
I wept and I wept, and I just couldn't stop.
Yes,
I'm weeping right now. I want to know what it is.
Okay.
and I want to make sure I watch it every day until I die, because that would mean it's the greatest film in the world.
No, it's going to be the worst. You're going to hate it. And I'm going to absolutely love it. Because remember, I loved John Carter.
Oh, that's right, you did. I can't imagine that being my daily film until my last day. Just watching John Carter every day.
I like it.
Although, what's her face? Deja Thorax, whatever her name is.
Thorax, yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. But the rest of the film, no.
Sure.
Okay. All right. What film on our list do you want to talk about next, Dustin? We got 3 more. Probably do a couple more on the live stream, maybe 1.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Let's jump over to 1922. I don't have a whole lot to say here, but yeah, let's talk about it.
Go ahead, set it up.
1922 is based on a Stephen King novel. It is about a farmer in the year 1922 who his wife, who he doesn't particularly care for, to say the least.
He does not.
He does not like her very much.
No.
She decides that she's going to sell the farm and move to the city, and she wants her husband and her son to join her. And so he decides that the best way to handle this scenario is to murder his wife and bring his son in on it, and that way they can keep the farm forever.
I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's so very unsettling.
Yes, very unsettling. So now you know why it's Stephen King. You know why I said that first. So it stars Thomas Jane and a bunch of other people that probably you don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let me give you my score here. I'm going to give this 2 stars. Yeah, I thought it's a
my daughter's telling you good night, Dustin.
Telling you good night or telling me good night?
No, you.
Oh, me? Oh, good night.
She walked in and saw those luscious locks of hair on you and was like, "Oh, goodness gracious. Is that Mr. Dustin I see?"
It is.
Good thing there wasn't one of these messed up pictures from this movie up with the rats or blood.
Oh, yeah, creepy. Yeah, man. No, I'm going to give this 2 stars. And the weird thing is, like, I didn't hate it, but I can't say it's fine. And here's why.
It's so interesting. I don't know.
What did you give it? And then I'll.
Well, I gave this 4 actually.
Okay.
I gave it 4 stars, and I think one of the reasons I did, well, not one of the reasons, but I guess one of the reasons I'm so shocked by your score is because, oh God, here's quickly, you won't see it till later, but the slide that was just up was them putting the cow over the well.
Oh no.
The one funny scene in the whole film.
Right.
Uproariously hilarious.
Totally not supposed to be funny though.
Yeah. One of the reasons why is because this seemed like a film that you and I would probably write.
Yeah.
Like the atmosphere is right up Dustin. For people who don't know, this atmosphere is right up Dustin's alley. It's a sort of like it's a Midwest, farmed family, and probably the plot would have come from me.
Sure.
But everything about the atmosphere of this film was one of the things I liked the most about it, I guess.
No, I would 100% agree there.
Yeah.
I think the film's just a little bit slow. It's a slow burn, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, except that on reflection, I'm like, what really happened? I feel like I think this is actually, I don't think this is a novel. I think this is a novella.
It's a novella.
So it's shorter. And I think that this film, which clocks in at about an hour, 45 minutes, could have been cut down by 15 minutes easy, probably even by 30. I thought that there's a lot of sort of empty space here. And so, like I said, slow burns aren't bad as long as the tension stays high and in a movie like this, as long as the tension stays high and as long as the mystery stays intriguing. But I didn't feel like the mystery, which in this case is not really a mystery. It's more, when I say mystery, I mean more like a what will happen kind of thing. Like that
Sure.
burning question that you have, I think fizzled out. I
Yeah.
think by about halfway through, I wasn't very interested in, are they going to get away with this? What's going to happen to everybody?
Yeah.
Um, and
I'm
so I
with you
think,
there.
yeah, so I think the mystery kind of died out. And then I think that, again, it's just a lot of like Thomas Jane like furrowing his brow and looking in the distance. And
Except in that picture, that's a total "Do you want me" picture I got up right now. Don't you want me?
don't you want me?
Man, I'll tell you what, his voice in this, that was one of the scary things. The moment he spoke, I was like, "Ooh," it was
It
weird.
was, and it's so weird too because I'm, I don't know, maybe a little pickier about, accents like this. But I mean, I know it's Midwestern, but it's similar to what I'm accustomed to.
Yeah, American
Um,
Southern.
so, but he nailed it, man. Like I was in on this. I think he had a really great performance. And I love most of the story for his son.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was towards the end when they decided to make his son. I don't know. Do we want to spoil this?
No, I don't. But
Okay.
when
Okay.
we
So
decide to, when they decide to do other things with his character, we'll say,
yes, when they decided to do other things with this character, there's a clear turning point for that character.
yeah,
When they do that, it lost me.
mm.
It almost became a different movie, and it just didn't ring true.
Yeah, I to me that's one of those areas where I think like in a weird way I can't draw like a parallel between this and A Quiet Place, but I
Sure.
will say that in that way this film is with horror movies and even with like black comedies and anything where like it's a serious or macabre subject matter,
Mhm.
one of the windows for the audience is still understanding his plight as a father. And
Yeah.
so if you look at this purely as like, forget for a second that they murder his wife,
Sure.
just for a second.
Yeah.
This is a guy who essentially decided I can do this on my own.
Yeah.
And that woman is nothing but a burden to this family,
Yeah.
and she's threatening to destroy this family.
Yeah.
And so forget how she is out of the picture. For him, it's like, I'm going to, and that point in the story is at some point in your story, your kids rebel and they decide they can go out on their own, and you are either prepared for that or you're not. So I guess in that sense, it worked for me that his
Sure.
son started becoming more rebellious, because then it was like, I sort of expected that to happen in a way, like for him to feel like his own character.
Sure.
And because he would at one point or another realize that he held some leverage over his dad,
Sure.
and ultimately start to realize the same thing his mom knew, which was that this guy's, that you can sort of, or at least maybe learned to, there's a way to box this guy in.
Sure. And I can understand the son being sort of the casualty of this thing, in a way. Seems like once a month I'm comparing something to Breaking Bad, but it just seems apt here. If you have like a character like this Thomas Jane character who is sort of allowing evil in his doorstep, right? And inviting evil in the same way Walter White may have done, that it's almost like at a certain point in both stories, you reach this nexus where the cards have to fall. And when that happens, that's maybe one of the most interesting things is when will the house of cards fall, and how destructive will it be? And I think that the comparison would be, Thomas Jane's son here, or like Jesse Pinkman in Breaking Bad. Evil is invited into their lives by somebody else, and then how they deal with that is up to them. What I think bothered me here was that the son essentially runs away, so that he runs away from the consequences, so that the burning question fizzles out. So the House of Cards relates more to Thomas Jane than it does to the son. But as Breaking Bad showed, you have to include this secondary character in on that House of Cards falling, because they're an integral part of everything. And it would be like if Jesse just like decided to, like, I don't know, move to Florida halfway through the 5th season. And then like at the end, they say, oh, and by the way, this is what Jesse's been up to. And in that case, it would have felt like a betrayal, because that character is important enough to face the consequences of the initial decision. And I don't know if I'm explaining that well, but I feel like by removing him, they avoided the inevitable, and so I kind of lost a little bit of interest in it. But and then maybe even the bookended nature of this thing spoiled a little bit of Thomas Jane's story. I don't know. I think there's something in it where a little more than halfway through it started to fizzle out for me. But I will say this, because I can rag on it all day. But here's what I'll say. The atmosphere is phenomenal. The cinematography is phenomenal. I think there's a lot of really, really fun and interesting, fun in quotes, fun and interesting ideas here. I just wish they had been a little more dynamic, and instead of maybe as passive as they are. So yeah, you know, I don't know. Maybe it's a 3, but it feels so. Maybe it's a 3-star, but it feels so much like I wouldn't necessarily watch it again. But if somebody told me like, "Hey, I'm going to watch 1922," I wouldn't say, "Don't bother. Like, don't waste your time." So I don't know if that's a 2 or a 3, but maybe it's a 2.5. But yeah, I feel like it needed more. It just needed another, like, maybe right in the middle. It needed like another big kind of, I don't know, big chess move that just kind of changed the game or something. So I don't know, man.
Well, none of that stuff bothered me. Sorry, I'm halfway in the middle of chewing some bacon.
No, it's all good.
Nothing's good for a dry throat like bacon.
Brought to you by bacon.
I have to tuck it under my teeth like a big can of dip. Sorry. So be chewing bacon on Facebook Live. Just there's all these cookies. None of that stuff bothered me.
Okay.
I essentially, and maybe I just sort of approached it from a much easier to please point of view. To me, it was just a story of a couple dudes who commit murder.
Yeah.
And the consequences of doing that. Shocking. They're awful.
Yes.
So don't ever do it.
Do not.
Yeah, I would. So I gave it a 4. I mean, maybe it's probably a little bit high on the higher end of a, but I think I feel like the film was pretty simple. It asked me to believe simple things, and it didn't really violate to me anything that it was setting up.
Sure.
Yeah, 1922, by the way, if we didn't mention that, it is on Netflix. So if you do want to see this film, it is readily available to pretty much all of you.
Yep.
If you decide, yeah, man, watch it right now.
Right.
Or not right now. Watch it when the stream is over.
Stay here now and watch it later. Yeah.
Which one do you want? You know what? Let's do another one.
Okay.
Want to do another one?
Let's do another one.
Because I'd like to save the discussion for after the jump.
Okay, sure.
So let's do this next one.
Okay.
A film that I saw, this is called Before I Wake, also on Netflix, by the way.
Yes.
So, Dustin, do you know, while I grab these clips, do you know anything about this film?
I know the 3 kind of stars of the film, and I know the general premise, but nothing beyond that.
Okay. One of the people that does star, which I didn't think, oh man, I wish I'd taken that slide out. That's a creepy one. All right, warning people, at some point, a corpse with a bug crawling out of its eye is going to pop up on here. So just be ready for that. Probably shouldn't have done that for the We'll see.
Nah,
anyway, there's Kate Bosworth and Thomas Jane. I did not know that was Thomas Jane until I saw the credits. Really? I, in my brain, was referring to that man as a Thomas Jane type the entire time.
Really?
Because I just didn't think it was him. It didn't sound like him. It was weird. And then at the end, I was like, oh, it's Thomas Jane. So then when I saw 1922, I was like, man, him and Netflix have some sort of thing going on.
Right.
And I also want to point out, too, that Thomas Jane's involvement in the films we're watching tonight is why I'm wearing this Punisher t-shirt.
Hey.
Actually. So, yeah, Thomas Jane, the original first Punisher. So, just wanted to point that out. Now I can change. So, yeah, the film also stars Jacob Tremblay, which, by the way, every time I say his name, I think of Ethan Tremblay, which was Galifianakis' character. And do you remember, what was it? I can't remember what it was called. The movie with him and Robert Downey Jr.
Oh, Due Date.
Due Date. So in that film, he wants to be an actor, and he's like, his stage name is Ethan Tremblay.
Yes.
So I hear Jacob Tremblay. Like the first few times I heard that, I couldn't take the kid seriously.
Dude, that kid is awesome.
That kid is amazing.
I want that kid to be in everything. He should be every kid in every movie.
He's the there's the eye socket right after the adorable kid. There's oh man,
you ruined it.
Sorry. It's like, I'm looking, they're both real close shots too, so it's like, oh, it's Jacob Tremblay, so cute. Hello, my friend.
Like if they ever do like a super young Robin, they should let Jacob Tremblay play him.
They should let him play anybody he wants.
Yes, agreed.
So Jacob Tremblay is this young boy named something, Cody. I think his name is Cody. And he is he's been making the rounds in the foster care system, and so he's taken in by Thomas Jane and Kate Bosworth, who lost their son roughly his age. And he drowned in the bathtub. And so they're sort of moving on from that. They're ready to adopt, taking a kid. So they take in Cody, and the home is real nice and loving, and they're just ready to receive this kid who is really polite but really reserved, and I wouldn't say timid, but just like quiet, reserved. Sweet kid. That kid has the cutest voice too. He does. He's just like, can I go upstairs now? He's just a nice kid, and so they take him in, and then after a couple of strange nights, they're sort of noticing like, oh, okay, he's not sleeping. He's like, he has this like stash of like energy drinks or something that he takes at night. God, I wish that I hadn't kept that zombie picture in. Oh well, get over it. It's fake. So they learn one night that, or over a series of nights rather, it's not something you think of in one occurrence. You kind of have to come to it eventually, is that his dreams manifest in real life. So right there in that picture, that he loves butterflies. So he goes to sleep dreaming about butterflies. So all these butterflies appear. Oh. And so then there's a bunch of these butterflies in their hallway. So essentially the Kate Bosworth figures it out, and so she starts showing him home movies of their son, and realize that their son starts appearing because then he starts dreaming about their son.
Yeah.
And then, so this is all kind of nice, a little bit like, of using the kid, but for the most part, it's kind of harmless. Except for this malevolent entity that I keep calling him Jacob, damn it, Cody, the boy. Yeah. He keeps dreaming about this, we'll call him a demon, I guess, but I'll call him a nightmare. He's a nightmare.
Okay.
The Canker Man. Okay. And the Canker Man ate his mom, is what he says, because his mom died. That's why he's in foster care. And he eats kids or something. So
of course he does.
Yes, they always do.
They do. Why
can't they eat vegetables or other things?
Right.
Just not people, not children, not people. Yeah, and when you think about it, just real quick, just to sort of point this out, all these, you've got, what is it? The Canker Man, you've got Bagul, you've got Pennywise. Yeah. All these people got to eat all these kids.
I know, right?
They're all eating the kids.
I guess because as a writer, that's like the evilest thing you can do.
It's pretty bad. It's certainly up there. Like if you want to be a bad guy, just eating kids.
Eat a kid.
Just take a bite out of a kid.
I mean, don't, but you could.
You heard of snapping into a Slim Jim?
Oh gosh. Who's Jim?
It's Jimmy.
Jimmy.
And Jimmy don't live here no more.
Slim James.
Slim James. This is terrible. This is horrible. It's a bad thing that's happening. Anyways, so, but he dreams about this thing, and so it actually shows up in real life and starts, terrorizing him, and also by extension his family.
Yeah.
So I've over-explained the plot. It's pretty simple, and then somehow they have to stop it. So what's my rating? I gave this a 3 stars. Okay, so this is directed by Mike Flanagan. The last time I saw a movie by Mike Flanagan was the only time I saw a movie by Mike Flanagan, and it was Gerald's Game, which Dustin and I both loved. I'll say, I don't know. Do you remember loving it?
You loved it. I never saw it.
Oh. Wow.
But it was fine. I loved it.
Well,
That's
my
fine.
memory is shit. Sorry.
No, you can. Maybe I did see it, and then I don't remember it. You don't know, but I never saw it.
Maybe I dreamed it.
Maybe.
And if I were Cody, it would be reality. Dustin would see this film and then love it. So I love Gerald's Game. Okay, there's another movie he created. He directed called Hush. I'm interested in that. So this fell short to me of the more reserved, silent tension of Gerald's Game. Gerald's Game sort of stays in its lane a little bit more with realism. Sure. I mean, and while all these things are literally in his head and then come out of his head, a lot of Gerald's Game is heavily implied to be psychological, but still scary. Like this isn't really happening, but it's scary. Yeah. But more unsettling. There's not a lot of scary in Gerald's Game. Yeah. I didn't even know it was technically a horror film until I watched it. I didn't know what it was about.
Right.
So there's a few jump scares in here. Not nearly as terrifying as I thought it would be, and overall, still straightforward with its story. And this is one of those where I can sort of pick out. It's very clear what the story's about. It's about how we cope with death differently. Yeah. Okay, they lost their son. The dad is sort of compartmentalized it, sort of ready to move on in a certain way. The mom hasn't gotten over it, but they're both forcing themselves to get over it by adopting this kid. And of course, once they figure out that he can dream and his dreams become real, they start trying to bring their son back in front of him, because when he appears, they can touch him. When they play home movies, Cody knows what he sounds like, so he can talk, and he sounds like him. Yeah. And it's seemingly, but you can't do that. And of course, part of why the nightmares start happening is because of how Cody himself has coped with the death of his mother and the other deaths that he has witnessed. Gotcha. I didn't care for Kate Bosworth's performance. There's, maybe one tiny micro section of a scene where I was like, oh, wow, you're really, but the rest of it, she's pretty, I don't know, just seems detached. And again,
she's a little flat just in general.
Yeah. And maybe that's just the way that she, is, and maybe that's the way that that she thought it would be good to play the character. But as I said with I can't remember what movie I saw. Oh, it was Annihilation. The last time I saw a movie where characters are meant to be sort of detached or sort of aloof, it doesn't translate well to the screen, you guys. It's fine if it's a real emotion. A lot of real emotions aren't manifested. You still have to show me what it looks like.
Right.
And you want to. So Jacob Tremblay, as we said, is great. It's really, I'm serious. It's really not even a scary film. There's some unsettling images at the very end, but it's really true to character. Because every sort of horror set piece in this film is directly translated to what is going on inside Cody's head. So everything that actually appears has a context to it that's real and relevant to the character. So in that way, it's very appropriate. Everything that kind of goes on and is shown and manifested. So anything you think might be ridiculous or sort of over the top, it's a little boy's dreams.
Right.
It's a little boy's nightmares.
Yeah. Exactly.
And for the record, that little zombie picture you're seeing, that scene, obviously part of a dream that he's having. It's very real and relevant to Cody, and something that the person looking at those images in the movie needs to see in order for that character to grow. So in that sense, I really, really loved that part. It's just kind of odd how it ends, and not really much plot thought is given to. It's one of those movies that ends and there's a resolution, but it's okay, but what about all those people? Are they just dead? They, shocker, they stop the entity. Okay.
Right.
But it's not everything's normal again. It's like, oh, so that person's really dead. That person's really dead. What are they going to do about this kid? Now everyone knows he can dream this stuff. Like what happens?
Right.
Anyway, exactly. I still recommend people. This is also on Netflix, so it's pretty easy to watch right now. It's a little more generic. It's not as special in terms of its atmosphere. Its cinematography or its look as 1922 is in terms of like how high end it looks. Technically, it's pretty generic in terms of like, shot design, all that other junk. It looks like a generic horror film.
Sure.
The creature, not that scary. I mean, scary. Sure. Like, yeah, it's scary to look at, in a way, but like after a while it's like, okay, but there's not a lot to this creature design if you're going to dock it for any reason.
Right.
So there's that. But yeah, 3 stars before I wake.
Okay.
I recommend it enough. It's not one of those where it's like stupid or there's no point to it. Like I said, the climax of the film is really character appropriate. So from a writing standpoint, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's weird. This film and 1922, both of these Thomas Jane films. Dustin, as you know, I'm in the middle of trying to resume writing 2 different films.
Yes.
So it's weird that 1922 resembles one of them in its setting. It's related to farming, a father, a son, and a cow. Mm-hmm. No pit for the cow to fall into, though.
Right, unfortunately.
I need that cow.
Write that in, man.
I need that cow to survive the.
Oh, okay.
Or do I? Oh, I don't. Oh my God.
Revelations.
So Revelations, and then this one is a little bit like the horror movie I'm writing, which is about there would be elements in there where you're obviously not supposed to. I mean, in this one, it's clear what's real and what's not.
Sure.
Although what's not real becomes real, but like the same sort of elements of like things that people find frightening manifesting as things that everyone finds frightening, creatures and bugs crawling out of faces and,
yeah, that's pretty scary.
People without eyes and stuff. So,
right.
So there's that. So it's just interesting that I ended up seeing these 2 films before this episode because they're oddly relevant to stuff I'm trying to develop right now. So, interesting. So maybe in that sense, like I said, from a character standpoint, it makes sense that the events in this film unfold the way that they do.
Yeah. Again,
simple story. I just, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. I didn't feel like I was wasting my time.
Cool.
So, anyway, what's not a waste of your time is if you came to our Patreon page to watch the rest of this video episode.
Nice segue.
Thank you. I've been working on those segues, man. It's tough.
Sweet. I know.
It's hard out there.
It is.
Just come to the Patreon page. It's just $1 for the full video episode. So yeah, pretty good stuff there. We're gonna do our commentary soon, Dustin. We're gonna do that. We're definitely gonna do that Justice League commentary. We decided.
Yes.
Dustin and I have decided we're gonna do Justice League. So that's gonna be fun. That'll be up on the Patreon page for those people. Yeah. And of course, if you're cool with the audio show, man, we've went long tonight. Woo! We get a lot of video content. Yep. I will say, where's that stupid links page? There it is. Again, there's how to find us on social media, all those links. But YouTube, HooperCast, MR Hooper-1 on SoundCloud, HooperCast Patreon, Facebook.com/HooperCast. Of course, if you're watching it live, you're here on Facebook. Twitter at HooperCast, at Dustin Weldon, at Connor_Dempsey, and Blogger and Tumblr as well, because for some reason people still watch the show through those.
Right.
For some reason.
Fine.
Sure.
You do you.
Yeah, you do you. That's okay. That's okay.
It's okay.
And then, of course, all the places you can get the show on our podcast, on the podcast later, the audio version. What is this? Sorry, my friend Ian is trash talking Scott Pilgrim. I gotta talk about that right now. So you can get full audio episodes of this. If you don't want to watch the full video, you can't part with your $1, or you hate us, but not enough to avoid the show altogether, you can find our full audio episodes on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Radio Public, Pocket Casts, Castbox, Breaker, Google Podcasts. I already said, wow, that's written in there twice. Son of a gun, and Anchor FM. That means I said it at the top of the show that way too. How about that?
There you go.
How about that? Anyways, guys, thank you for tuning into the live stream. We'll do it again a couple weeks from now.
Yeah.
So for the YouTube people and the live stream people, goodbye. Have a good evening. Tune in next week for our episode with Michael Grayson, where we talk about a bunch of films, including Ant-Man and the Wasp, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, and a couple others that I've forgotten about, but they were fun. This is only a couple nights ago, and I've already forgotten.
That's fine.
That was a fun episode.
It was.
They always are. Michael's a great guest. So check those out. I will see you guys after the jump. Patreon people and audio people. Yeah. So we will be right back.
Sweet.
Sorry about that.
That's all good. I was like, where did he go?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here, man. Cool. Well, there goes the live. All right, Dustin, let us come to our discussion for the night, because I'm sorry I boxed you in with time.
It's all good. It's all good.
So, my bad.
It's all good.
I'm like, I'm trying to click on the slide. Like, where are the slides at? I'm looking right at them like an idiot. You had some thoughts about it.
So, I don't want to harp on it too much. Hooper, do you remember offhand what you gave it star-wise?
I believe I gave it 3 stars.
3? I was thinking you gave it 3.
I think I gave it 3 stars.
Okay. And that's where I would go too. But I have a couple of points, and I actually wrote them down because I did my homework on this. And I just wanted to, I guess, just chat with you about your thoughts on these things. This conversation might be relatively short. It might not be. We'll see. Mm-hmm. So the first thing I wrote, the first word I put was atmosphere, but I think what I'm more talking about is so not like a visual atmosphere, but rather like the atmosphere in the story. Okay. In the story, let me see. So here's an example, right? So in the story, these kids are kind of picked on and bullied at school, and outside the schoolhouse too, and they are misfits and local kind of losers. Everybody in the movie that are adults seem to be kind of aloof and kind of like detached, and this is exemplified for me in a scene where one of the characters, he's the bigger, like, overweight character. I can't remember his name, Ben or something. Ben is being attacked by the bully, whose name I have written down. Let me see what his name is. Henry. So Henry is attacking Ben, and he's literally carving his name into Ben's stomach. Oh. And these two older folks like drive by and like watch this happen, and they just keep on driving. And in the back seat of their car, you see a balloon, like a red balloon, and they keep driving by. And then, there's obviously, moments like where Bev is in her bathroom and all the blood comes up from the sink, and her dad can't see that. Likewise, at the very beginning, you have Georgie and the attack on Georgie happening, and the older woman, on her front porch that kind of sees the remnants of that, the leftovers, if you will, and just kind of, there's no mention of her doing anything about it. She's just kind of like sipping her coffee or whatever. So there's like a general aloofness and weird, uncaring mentality in this city of Derry, and so the atmosphere here feels very fantasy based. It doesn't remind me of reality, and so that's sort of the main thing for me is that here. There's nothing, because normally in a horror movie, and especially in a movie like this, you kind of set up the world and remind me that this is my world that I live in. And then the weird things start happening. And then it feels, weirder. It's like, oh, wow, like that flies in the face of everything that I know. And then, but in this, it never feels like the real world to me. And so I'm not saying I hate the movie, but I'm saying that there are, I think, problems with the way that the world and some of the storylines are presented, and chief among them is that it doesn't feel like the world that I live in. Did you have and I think this is vaguely addressed later in the film, maybe more so in the book, that the reason that red balloon is in the old couple's car, and the reason there's a general feeling of detachment from the adults is that they're all sort of under Pennywise's spell. That it kind of has this hold on the city and keeps everybody docile, even though weird things are happening. Did you have a problem with that? Because that explanation doesn't come for a very long time in the movie. Did that take you out at all?
No, I just, again, this in a weird way. Wow, this has actually been a pretty nice segue between films tonight.
Yeah.
In a way, sort of like Before I Wake, I just considered it like you're sort of seeing this horror through the eyes of children. So in a way, it felt appropriate that it was this ever-present kind of unexplainable, borderline unexplainable presence to them.
I can see that. I think, part of me, I probably am harsher on horror movies because I feel like you have to establish the world and do it well enough that the freaky things are still freaky. Because if the freaky things aren't freaky, then you don't have a story. But if normal life is also freaky, then there's no freakiness to the freaky. Does that make sense? It's so, to me, had I been writing this story or what have you, it feels like I would have tried to avoid situations like the old couple driving by, because anybody's going to stop and say, what's going on here? And so for them to not stop, or for whatever happened, it feels weird until the explanation comes. And I think that in a movie like this, if the explanation comes too late, then you've set up all this stuff that doesn't smack of reality. So to me, it takes me out. I can't fully invest because it doesn't remind me of my world, or really of any discernible other fantasy world either. But you've got, all of that happening, and then, all these kids are sort of touched by parental abuse in a way too. And whether that's a verbal abuse, a sexual abuse, or what have you, most of these kids are touched by that too. And so it just feels like there's never a constant, or here's a normal. And then here's the abnormal. It's just all abnormal all the time. And so I think it waters down the abnormal when even the things that should be normal are abnormal. And then I think, I guess just to tack onto that, you've got Henry the bully, like I said, carving his name into Ben's stomach. And it's like, I know that people get bullied and people have been bullied, but that's so extreme. Like I know later in the movie, there's another twist, another turn that, maybe we don't want to spoil with Henry, but it just feels so extreme so fast. Like to me, again, had I been writing this, I would have made sure that it felt like the most dangerous thing. But in a weird way, Henry, or Bev's dad, felt more dangerous to me, because I don't know. Spoiler alert. This is not spoiler alert. Never mind. This is probably stemming from the fact that I knew nothing about it going in. I thought maybe, I didn't know it was some cosmic entity or a demon or anything. I just thought it was a dude dressed as a clown. For me, that was scary enough.
Sure.
So maybe part of this is I was in the mood for like a human villain.
Right.
So like I was looking for what was realistic, or I was looking for, some sort of like baseline before we got into the weird, but the weird just starts.
Right.
And I don't know, man. Like I'll tell you, this was my reaction to it, and then you can add on to it. And maybe I won't go through the bullet points, but I'll touch on a few things here. My reaction to it was a feeling just like the adults of the town of detachment. I was detached through most of the movie, and it wasn't until the very end that I felt like there was actually something to care about, because through the majority of it, we're led to believe that Georgie's dead, but really the question still remains. Is Georgie dead? Is Georgie alive? What's happening? Is any of this real? Because we're seeing all of these crazy dreams and scenarios. Could Georgie's, in the opening scene where his arm gets bitten off, could that not have been fake? Like, there's so many questions. And so for me, it built this level of like detachment. Like I never felt like, okay, Georgie's definitely dead and he's definitely, been eaten. And so I'm definitely afraid of this thing. And then, you have all of these like hallucinations which come and go. And it's not until, again, later in the movie that it's established that it is doing that to like flavor the meat, right? But then it doesn't quite add up, because at the end, the bodies of his victims are all floating relatively intact in his lair. So is he eating them or is he not eating them? And then at the beginning, when he saw Georgie, he was trying to make friends with Georgie. He wasn't trying to scare Georgie. So was he trying to flavor his meat, or was he not trying to flavor his meat? Mm-hmm. And there's so much like that where I'm like, I was also in the mindset where I guess at a certain point, okay, fine, I'm not going to get my baseline of reality. I'm going to now try to solve the mystery of who is it? What is he doing? What's happening? And solve like what's going on in Derry and all this stuff. I'm going to try to beat the kids to it. I'm going to figure it out. But nothing added up, right? Like I couldn't have surmised that he's flavoring the meat because he didn't do it with Georgie. I couldn't have surmised that, like, for a fact that he's eating them even till the end, because they're there, like they're floating, except for Georgie, who's still gone. So he did eat Georgie, but he didn't eat the others. And so like, it just didn't feel like that character, it was fleshed out to me, which is weird because I know it's based on a huge, thick book. And it's also, got like a previous film version. So I feel like you should know that character and what he's doing. But all that to say, my reaction to this movie was not fear. My reaction to this movie almost through the whole thing was confusion, in that I didn't know what was real, what was not real, what was like to be feared and what was not to be feared. I didn't know if this was a mystery that was possible for me to solve, or if it was a mystery that the kids even were going to solve. And I never felt like there was like I never felt like there was a chance to understand it. Not the movie, it meaning the character. I never felt like there was a chance to understand it. And granted, I don't want like the it origin story, but I do want like, and also I don't want like long ago there was a demon and the demon did the thing, and like here's the limit of his powers, and
biting children's arms off.
Well, he just loves the taste of those little kids' arms, and
come on down to Evans Barbecue. We got little kids' arms, and we got clowns and all crap, sweet tea.
I'll take one small Georgie and an extra large bucket of blood.
Give a bucket of blood.
Bucket of blood straight from the bottom of the drain in your sink.
Give me a Beverly and a Beverly's father.
And put some hair in it. Hair that's been freshly cut off to signify her independence as a woman. But like I don't know. Like I don't know if you had that same reaction or could relate to anything I just said at all, because I definitely feel like I was in the minority. and maybe the way that I assume that I consume horror movies is wrong. Like maybe I consume them in a way that is like more demanding of like the rules. And maybe the point of a horror movie is that you don't know the rules. But for me, I look at it like I look at like a superhero movie, which is like, okay, I got to know the powers of these characters and I got to know what their limits are. And I have to know that if like you punch him, is he going to die? Like I have to know these things. And if I don't know them, then I can't abide by the rules because there are no rules. Like I don't know. Am I just like throwing up garbage here?
No, I understand all your points. I think it's interesting because whenever we have sort of wildly different reactions to a film, but we give it the same rating, that typically means that we had different expectations for it. And I'd probably say you're on the high end of expectations. And I was probably on the low end of expectations.
Sure.
It's interesting. This movie, this is probably one of those films that is a lot scarier to people than it deserves to be. Not even this film, but like this story. I mean, maybe the book is just terrifying. But I didn't even see the Tim Curry thing, but I can tell you from what I've seen, it doesn't look scary at all.
No, it doesn't.
So this is certainly scarier.
Sure.
I don't know well, here's the good news, Dustin. If you were ever confronted by a malevolent entity, you can just argue it's to make it go away. Because all you have to do is go, this doesn't really make a lot of sense what you're doing. I mean, are you going to eat me or are you going to keep my body? Because you can't do both. And it'll just go, I don't know. I don't know. I wanted to eat you, but I decided not to.
Right.
I guess you make some good points.
Well, and don't get me wrong. Like I know there are people that really, really love this movie, and I don't think it's a bad movie by any means.
No.
I have a hard time with horror movies, and I do think that part of it is I almost feel like you have to know pretty upfront what this malevolent entity wants or what it is doing, and I think this film doesn't really figure that out until the third act, and that's okay, I guess, as long as everything that they do then is like the same, because the more information you give me, the more I'm going to try to piece it together on my own. But if you don't give me the proper clues, then I can't piece it together, and it leads to inconsistency.
That doesn't bother me because I think I'm at least I feel less secure when I don't know what it wants, and which I would probably argue is the intent for lots of horror movies. Is all you know is that this thing's bad. Its powers are seemingly limitless, and it's scary, and I don't know how to make it go away because I don't know what it wants, so I don't know what it doesn't want, or what or how I can stop it.
Sure.
And I think with stories, at least this is the way I see it, and this could just be my limited perspective, but I would think with stories, I tend to look at life this way. You know how when you've got everyone has strengths and weaknesses, and like when you've got like maybe you're playing a video game and you've got a character and the character's got stats, and you have a limited amount of stats you can use, so you can fill up their speed, their stamina, but you have to like take away you have to take some stats away from their power. So maybe they can't punch very hard, but they can take a punch really hard and they can go forever and they're faster than everybody else.
Right.
So I think that people are that way. Otherwise you'd have unstoppable people.
Sure.
For the most part. I bet Elon Musk I bet he has a terrible sense of humor and can't enjoy very many things.
Sure.
But my God, he's smart and he has lots of energy and that's good. But so I think that Stephen King as a writer and creators in general might have a strength where, you were the first. I'm only implying you're the first half of this. The second half, I'm not.
Sure.
There are people who are very good at the world building, the rule establishing, the nuts and bolts, the logic of a story. Yeah. And then those same people might be might be lacking in the areas of emotional resonance of a story. Yeah. So I think most creatives fall in that category where they might be strong in one area, but they lack in another. So, and then we have people who are really good at emotional resonance. But when you break down, it's like, but if you think about the structure, it doesn't really make that much sense. Sure. And then the good ones are the ones that are good at both and maybe just have horrible personal lives.
Right. Those are your J.R.R. Tolkiens who think about every last aspect of the world and also still manage to craft a meaningful story.
Right. And so I don't want to excuse Stephen King by saying the sentence like the best stories are the ones that are a mixture of extremely incredible talent, great timing, and just a really good idea that happened to this person. Sure. But I will say that. Now, again, I think Stephen King, as prolific of a writer as people might hold him to be, from what I hear, I mean, and from what we were talking about the other day, Stephen King in general is fine. He's hit and miss as a writer. I think a lot of people really like his books. He's certainly popular, but everyone I talk to goes, he's fine. He's good. Yeah. And so a lot of the story and a lot of books just tend to be what you can envision it. So some people have good imaginations. This book might be terrifying to people because they don't know what the hell this clown's supposed to look like. They don't know. Right. All they can picture is what his words paint. Yeah. So when you bring it to the film, you've got one guy's, a handful of people's ideas of what this world, what this character, these kids, this clown, all this stuff is supposed to look like. Yeah. So that's one of the reasons I can argue for books over movies in that sense, is that you're going to do, the best way to satisfy the consumer of the content is to let them imagine it, because they're just going to imagine the stuff they like anyways. That's why everyone bitches when movies don't match the book. Like when Harry Potter didn't match or they cut things out. It's like, you're not watching what you would have done. You're watching what this director did. You're watching someone, every time you watch a film, you're watching someone else's
adaptation,
vision. Right. So with this film, so I know you're not complaining about the story in that sense, because, the story is from King, but I will agree that the internal logic of the film doesn't quite add up. But I think, in at least for me, it's excusable here because the protagonists are characters who are simply just terrified. Now, for this part 2 that's coming, they're all adults. Yeah. Come back to Derry. I guess the clown's there too. I don't know much about how the story goes at the second half of this. Me neither. But I would then say that's where your criticism probably applies more aptly, because then you've got adults who probably, while still suffering the effects of like some abuse, some neglect, whatever they've got going on psychologically, would then go, but wait a minute.
Right.
Yeah. And so at that point I would go, I'm with you because you're a grown ass person who these things should now occur to, as a logical person who's thinking more with their prefrontal cortex and not as much with their amygdala. Right. Where kids, everything when you're a kid is heightened emotion. Everything seems like the end of the world, and you're thinking just purely based on your brain's chemical reactions for the most part. Yeah. So I can only assume that's the same logic that applies to the events and the logic of this film. Yeah. That's my excuse anyway.
No. I think that's actually, I think that's a good thought. I think that I can certainly understand the fact that it's from the kid's point of view, and I can certainly also understand the fact that, as a writer, you probably want your villain to feel mysterious to an extent. Mm-hmm. You don't necessarily want like them 100% spelled out. However, I think that, I think that I mean, let's look at like the Joker, right? Like Heath Ledger's Joker. Mm-hmm. We don't know who he is. We don't know where he's from. We don't know what his story is. And to an extent, for a long time in the film, we don't really know what his goal is. He's just a unstoppable force. Right. And maybe it is the same way. He's just this thing that does things, and they're scary things that he does. But I think then the difference between the two may be that at a certain point, Bruce Wayne no longer worries himself with who the Joker is or what he's doing, but or what he has done, but instead focuses on, all right, I'm stopping him now. Like, I'm going to stop what he's doing. It doesn't really matter where it comes from or what his goal is. I don't know. Anyway, but then with it, to have those kids in the third act kind of like looking at slideshows and trying to figure him out, opens the door for investigation on the part of the audience, which they can never succeed at solving. So there again, I'm probably looking at it wrong. Like, now I'm looking at it like it's a detective story. Like, I have to be given all the clues to the Hardy Boys mysteries in order to solve them before the Hardy Boys do themselves. It's probably the wrong way to look at it. But all that is to say, maybe this is all that I can say, and all that maybe needs to be said at this point, is that the effect that they were looking to create in me, which is a feeling of fear and a feeling of just pure adrenaline, in that I don't know where he's going to show up, I don't know what he's going to do, was completely mitigated in my point, or in my mind, because I wasn't clear on what he was doing. I wasn't clear on why he would do these elaborate, hallucinations that, again, I'm not clear if, like, in the hallucination you can be injured. Like, could Bev had died, or was it not a hallucination? Like, was it real? Because the other kids came in there and helped her clean it up. So I guess it was real.
Right.
So I guess, I mean, I guess these hallucinations, or whatever you want to call them, are real. The leper that's chasing that one kid. I guess these things are real. And if they're real, okay, great. And I guess you can be killed, and that's fine. But I guess in my mind, it was mitigated because I wasn't sure of the internal logic behind it. And yeah, I don't know. I just feel like the mystery to me of everything ruined the horror of it. And I almost feel like if it had just been like, it's a dude dressed as a clown that eats people, I feel like I would have been way more frightened. Then I don't know what it is. I don't know. It's just a thing. It's just a thing. It's just a thing. Oh, it's a demon entity thing. Mm-hmm. Okay, fine. But like if it had, I don't know, man. All I know is that I wouldn't, while there's some creepy imagery here, I don't know that I would even classify this as a horror movie, because to me, there wasn't enough information given for me to be scared by the villain. And again, right, maybe I'm in the smallest minority here. But yeah, man, I don't know. I think what it boils down to, because essentially what this episode has become is Dustin just saying, I don't understand things. But I think what it boils down to is that probably I just am not going to be that great at reviewing horror movies. The ones that I love, right? Like, you've got The Thing, and you've got Alien, and you've got, whatever. But with those, I feel like it's very clear very quickly, these are beasts. Mm-hmm. They are going to be, motivated by their own instincts. Yeah. Or even, Hannibal Lecter, I think makes sense to me. And then these things don't. So, even Jaws makes sense. He's just a shark.
Right.
So
he's trying to eat.
Right. Exactly. I'm just living here, just doing my thing, just living.
I know everyone's freaking out. I'm just trying to eat.
Look, dude, there's a yummy child here on a surfboard. I'm just gonna eat him real quick.
I bet when Jaws saw this movie, he was like, I don't see what the problem is. He's just trying to eat.
Right. He's probably like,
We're just both trying to eat people.
Maybe I should wear some clown makeup. I don't know.
Who do you think has more teeth, Pennywise or Jaws?
Ooh, that's a good question. Probably Pennywise, because I feel like there was that one time where he like opened up and it was like, all teeth.
It's just a bunch of teeth.
Like maybe he just is teeth.
Real quick, I'm just going to use this opportunity to say the Letterboxd code word for this because this is the last time we're going to say it.
Yes.
And also, I need to say it. The code word for July for the final time. Amelia, go to bed. And there it is.
There it is, guys.
Also, there's like a bunch of scary slides playing right now. I don't want her, Heck, I'm afraid that Pennywise is going to jump out of my slideshow, just right out of my computer and into my face. Yeah,
it's gonna be like all giant.
Right when you said that, there's a picture of him like growling and lunging at the camera. So that's perfect. That's terrifying. Okay, great. I get that slide off the camera.
There's some really cool stuff in this. Like you can like go to YouTube and find where the director was able to like sneak images of Pennywise into the background of several shots that I never noticed.
Oh yeah,
as if he was like watching the kids even when he wasn't scaring them.
Oh geez.
Yeah. So there's like the scene where Ben, after he's been like stabbed or whatever, they're like trying to take care of him, and they're in the alley, which is like the only alley that they had permission to film in.
Sure. Yep.
Because it was like that same alley for everything.
Yeah.
And so they are there, and like on the background there's like or on the wall, on the brick wall, there's like graffiti.
Yeah.
It was like a mural or something, and at one or maybe 2 points you can see Pennywise painted onto the mural, and then then in the next shot he won't be there.
Oh.
And so it's crazy, but it's like the filmmaker being like, yeah, he's watching them.
Wow.
And I never noticed it. So
Amelia, go to bed. I can hear you. I know you're there. Go to bed, please.
She's like, Pennywise, just chilling in the mural.
All right. I gotta wrap this up.
I gotta go too.
Well, these are valid points, Dustin. I think you are overthinking this personally.
I think I am.
But the good news is you are too logically minded to ever be truly frightened by the perils of supernatural life.
Right.
So that's the count your blessings.
Yes.
Yeah. So anytime you hear a bump,
give me like one crazed dude though, and like.
Sure.
That's scary, man, because like that's a dude. But you give me like a creepy clown that was birthed out of a cough of a turtle, and I'm like,
I'm the opposite, man. I do with this. Supernatural things freak me out more than people do. Just because if like a person's in my, if like I just wake up and there's like a person with like, there's like, okay, well, I know what the rules are. I know that gravity still works, and I know that you're here and I'm here. If it's if it's something going on here, it's like that reality stone. The minute I stand up, maybe I turn into paper, Then what can I do?
Right. True.
So for me, it's like, I know what I could do if the rules are all the same, but if this is like supernatural, who knows what kind of powers it has and what it can do to disable. I only know how to fight one way, and it knows how to like disable me. Whereas, just some person, it's like, okay, so
yeah.
At least I know what to do right now.
No, I can see that.
Now, of course, when they go into like when they go into the sewers, and then they just essentially beat Pennywise to death. Yeah. It's like, oh, good thing his powers are, I guess good thing it's all based on fear, and it's not like he can just, but I'm thinking that would be the time to turn into a monster and try to eat them.
Right. Exactly.
I turned like that big Joker monster from Arkham City or whatever, which is kind of what he does for a second in that slideshow.
That's true.
But then it's not real. So
right.
I don't know. Anyways, okay, that was a deep dive for sure.
Whew, yeah. I can't say I feel better.
It's unsatisfying.
I just feel crazier.
Sure. No. Well, I would. It'd be worse if I pretended to kind of side with you.
Right. No, it would be.
On this particular point.
It would be.
Everyone, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching if you're on Patreon. We're going to go. Tune in next week for Michael Grayson, a few films, lots of fun, and that kind of stuff too. Yeah. And stay. Yeah, that's it.
Stay hooping.
See you guys. Stay hooping. See you guys next week. Have a good weekend. Get out there and see some good films. And we'll see you all next week.
Yeah. Woo. Woo.